brothers were called to be free. You, my brothers, were called to be free.
When you're trying to see in the dark, even a small circle of light helps. Hello, my name is Daniel Westbrook, and I want to welcome you to this year's Touchstone Tribute, the virtual edition. Perfect vision is referred to as 2020, but I can honestly say that I don't believe that this was a year that anyone saw coming. And most would say this year has been far from perfect. In the past, Touchstone's annual fundraising event has been set up right here in this very room, usually filled with people circled around tables, enjoying dinner and listening to powerful stories of the impact of Touchstone. Last year, I was a guest at one of those tables. I believe right over here. But this year is different in a lot of ways, particularly for me. This year, I have a new role. I am honored to be your guide through all that is 2020 as we join together in this circle to share stories of how God is using the ministry of Touchstone to help us navigate. As the prophet Isaiah has said, out of gloom and darkness so that the eyes of the blind will see. The best guides, in my opinion, are those with experience. So I would like to start by telling you my experience with Touchstone. My connection there began because of something I went through that I now know far too many kids experience. I came from a great family with a mom and a dad who I know loved me. Things weren't always perfect, but life was good. It was good, that is, until it wasn't. Until as a young boy, I was sexually abused by a close family member. Being abused began a dark and confusing time in my life. This was nothing I knew how to talk about, nor nothing I thought I ever could tell anyone. So I didn't. Thankfully, my brother walked in on one of those episodes of abuse that I suffered and did what I couldn't do. He told. By telling, my brother stopped the abuse, but that didn't stop the damage. I felt like there was something wrong with me. Like I was now broken and damaged goods. And if I couldn't accept what happened to me, how could I expect anyone else to ever accept me? My greatest fear was that no one in the world ever would. And if this was all that life would ever be, I wanted out. So in the 8th grade, I tried to find that way out. I tried to end my life. That attempt was the beginning of my time with Touchstone. Talking to a counselor was nothing I planned on doing and didn't come easy for me. My ability to trust was gone. But over time, I felt that I could trust my counselor enough to even get involved with other Touchstone activities. Things like meeting with other kids in the park. I even went on a few weekend retreats. For me, everything we did was fun, and we'd always seem to end up having talks. We would talk about love, talk about family, and talk about what a relationship with God looks like. But while everything Touchstone offered me was beneficial, it wasn't some kind of magical quick fix. I was still hurting, and at the same time, I was becoming a very angry teenager. I found out the hard way, at least in my situation, that hurt can become depression, and unfortunately, depression becomes anger. The family member who violated me took away my power and made me feel weak. I hated that feeling, and I will never forget how, as a teenager, that helpless feeling just melted away the first time that I ever put my hand on a gun. I thought that's how I could take my power back, by overpowering others. Just like that scripture from Isaiah, I was lost in the gloom and darkness of what had been done to me and had become blind to everything and everyone else. I had no compassion, no empathy, and no true love for anyone, especially for myself. For a teenager, gang life on the streets doesn't last long before you're caught. A few stints in the Juvenile Justice Detention Center turned into a few years of incarceration as an adult after I turned 18. Even though I was still relatively young, I had wasted way too many years of my life in and out of prison. I remember thinking once I got out, I would never go back in. But it didn't take long before I was looking at losing my freedom again. This time I found out that I was facing charges that could have kept me in prison for a big part of the rest of my life. But by the grace of God, most of my charges were dropped. And that was a turning point for me. I decided to use everything, good and bad, that I had been through to help others, especially kids like me. My plan was to take every opportunity that I had to be about helping others. I was determined to be all over the community, talking and listening to kids. And that's why I'm here now. About a year ago, as I was pulling out of my parking spot at a local high school, I saw a familiar face I thought I knew walking across the parking lot. As he got closer, I rolled down my truck window and yelled out, "Your name Jim, ain't it?" As he answered yes, a smile came upon his face when I told him, "It's me, Daniel." It had been like 20 years since I had seen my counselor from Touchstone. I immediately felt warmth and acceptance, like finding a good friend again. It was like coming back to a good place during a good time. One of the meanings for the word touchstone is a fundamental part or feature, something that you can always come back to. My early days with Touchstone are a fundamental part of who I am today. Like I said before, it's not a quick fix, but it is a part of all that God is using to make me, and a whole lot of kids just like me, into the person He wants me to be. I'm certainly not the first person Touchstone has helped, and with your support, I won't be the last. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to ask you to spend a few minutes listening and seeing what Touchstone is all about, and how you can be involved too. And coming up, we have a very special guest joining us. Award-winning broadcast journalist Demetria Kaladimos will present this year's Hero Awards. You definitely don't want to miss that. Throughout our time together, you're going to see ways you can help teens scrolling at the bottom of your screen. Please use this opportunity to help as many kids as you can. I am just one of the many people who have found hope and help through Touchstone. Let's take a look now and hear from a few more.